Hey y'all, I'm James Wright and welcome back to my boat. We're going to be doing fiberglass today! Yay! Epoxy. You either love it or you hate it. And yeah, this is going to be a fun one. We're going to be using traditional 5-to-1 epoxy, and you may have noticed what I just did wrong. Yes, I did put the wrong pump in the wrong one, and now that they're in there it means I'm stuck, which means every one pump of this I have to do 25 pumps of that. That's going to be a lot of epoxy. Well, let's go with what we got. But that's honestly not a huge problem because I do have kids that can do all of the pumping work for me. So I'm going to do 1 or 2 to show them how to do it, and then they're going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 25 on this, and then 1 square to the other. So when you're putting these together, make sure you put the right spigot in the right pump. But yes, I'm going to be using 5-to-1 for most of this. It has some bonuses to it, but it has a few things you have to be careful about. I'll talk about that a little later. I have a couple voids in here where I just want to fill them in. We're going to be smoothing out this floor and putting a coat over it. Normally I would use glass beads in here to add a thickener, but I had a bunch of this pre-chopped fiberglass, and so I just put that in here. I don't need it to be any structural, or I don't need it to really fill up any space other than it's just got to have a flat layer that I can then put regular epoxy on top of, just because there's a few odd voids. This is underneath what used to be underneath the chair when we took that out. So I'm just going to fill that in, load it up, and then I'll come back and smooth it out a little bit later. There are a bunch of plywood pieces that I have to duplicate. And yeah, I'm actually going to be using some power tools here, but you can see the condition of this. I didn't want to put these back in. So I got some new plywood that we can cut all this out of. And so the nice thing is I've got these ones here. I can just trace out what was there and match it up exactly. And then we can come in with the circular saw, and then with the Sawzall and reciprocating saw, and have a little bit of fun. And yes, I do own a full collection of regular power tools. I used to do construction, but I do have them for jobs around the shop because there are times when, I really don't want to pull out the handsaw. There is no reason to be hand sawing this plywood when I can just cut it out with a saw. And this makes it a lot easier. So for some of these, they're fairly straightforward. There are a couple small pieces that have to be attached on the end. I had to be a little careful of the holes we're drilling out and actually cutting out. Those were where the speakers are going to be going. And these will all get covered in upholstery. And right now, all of the old furniture is actually at the upholsterer who's going to be doing it for me rather than doing it myself. I thought about doing all the sewing myself. I've done that before, but in this case, I don't really want to. I want to make sure everything fits in place and gets roughly where it needs to be. This is actually the baseboard that goes over the tank, and it gets another piece adhered to the bottom of it, and so we applied on a liberal amount of glue, and then we're going to screw it, and then we're going to wrap it all together with fiberglass. So this will get 2 coats of fiberglass on all sides. Speaking of which, we're going to be using this chopped mat. I'm using this for the underside, the bottom pieces. Number 1, it's cheaper. Number 2, I don't really care about how the underside looks. I just want to get it down. So using the chopped mat actually is just simpler, easier, though it's not as pretty when it's all done. I am going to make sure that I'm applying epoxy down first so it has something to soak into, and then I can apply more on top and fill that in. All of the sharp corners have a little bit of a round over on it. I should have done a little bit more with this chopped fiberglass. It spreads easier with the bi-weave, but for this, where it's going all different directions, I should have put a slightly bigger round over on it. But in this case, it's not a huge issue. It'll be on the bottom, and I can actually cut off a little bit of the bubble that was there, and the second coat sealed that in. So we're just going to be working it down to place and soaking the mat with as much as it wants, and then you can use the squeegee to move it all around. I had my son off there pumping them for me and handing them to me, and I had to be pretty careful. We were working outside, and it was getting relatively warm. This day it wasn't so bad, but when we did the inside of the boat, it was like 95 degrees out, and so the epoxy kicked really, really quickly. For the top of the pieces that we're actually going to be seeing, I'm going to be putting a bi-weave on there. This lays really nice and flat and clean. It's also a little more structural. I'm also putting some peel ply on top of it. And the peel ply, you put it on top, and then when you're done and it's all dry, you peel that off and it gives you a buttery smooth surface. It's also better for laying others on there. One of the problems with the 5-to-1 is that it has a blush on top if you let it air dry. And that blush you have to get off. And you can get it off with as simple as soap and water, or if you're going to be sanding it for the next one. But if you put down peel ply, you don't have to worry about that. You can go right into the next one as well. That's one of the big benefits of the more modern 2-to-1 is it doesn't blush. But the 5-to-1 has a few other benefits as well that I like on it. Here you can see we're laying out the peel ply. I went the cheap route and got the peel ply that it was folded, and so you have to be careful of some of the wrinkles. They kind of ruin a few things. But as long as you're careful with it, you don't have too much of a problem. Most of the time it comes rolled and then there's no wrinkles in there. Yes, I do have a respirator because I'm going to be doing a lot of grinding and sanding. And you really do not want to be breathing this in. I'm using the grinder to get off any of the sharp points, and there's a lot of epoxy that need to go down, especially inside the boat. I'll be showing that a little bit later. And then I'll come in with the orbital sander. We're rounding over all of the corners, so when the epoxy goes on, it rounds over. And I get a nice clean edge on the top side, especially as we're going to be seeing. Let's go back into the boat. I have all of this where we rough cut out where the original seat was, and so we needed to grind that all smooth, getting ready to put down a new coat of epoxy on this. I probably should have worn a Tyvek suit on this, but it was so hot out that day that I decided to basically throw away the shirt. So I grabbed a shirt that is very worn out and I was going to be getting rid of. So I chose that so I could just throw it out when I was done, and took several good showers right afterwards. And that actually does really well. So yeah, Tyvek would be a little bit better, but for my comfort and the small amount I was doing, it was actually a little bit easier just to do it like this. So I hit it with all the grinder, got most of it down, and then brought in the orbital sander to do the final smooth out. We are going to be putting epoxy on top of this and a bit of fairing compound here and there. But that did really well, but unfortunately it means a lot of dust all over the place. So we did several good vacuumings. I vacuumed the whole surface, then I had one of my kids come in and vacuum the whole surface, and then another one go in and try and vacuum more up, and we got up as much as we could out of the boat, and this worked out really well. We did also come in and wipe it all down with acetone before applying the epoxy so that it would lay down. You have to forgive me, my son is actually doing the videoing here, and it's his first time for doing videoing, so I think he did okay, but yeah. You also notice I'm cutting several of these corners trying to get them to lay flat because you can't quite get a good 90-degree corner in this. We will be putting up a carpet on the side that's kind of tucked underneath, so I don't care as much about the sidewall as I do just that little bit of a round at the bottom where you'll still see that. And then, of course, we start dumping on the epoxy. I did not put epoxy underneath this. It's really good to do with wood, and so that it can soak into the wood rather than the wood pulling it out of the fiberglass. In this case, the fiberglass underneath is not going to soak up much epoxy, and because it was so hot out, I had to work very, very quickly because this was kicking off almost as soon as I was done. So that's why I chose just to put the epoxy straight on top. You can see my my youngest, he's the one actually doing the pumping today, and he got stuck with it because my middle son, he got to do the camera work. So we're working as quickly as we can, run it down. I am using the slow hardener on this, which is one of the nice things about the epoxy, is you can actually choose the different rates at which you want it. And the slow hardener gives you a good bit of time. On a normal day, you would have 6 to 12 hours, whereas today, it's much, much less. Originally, the plan was to put down wood planking on top of the fiberglass, but I found after taking the seat out, the floor was not smooth enough for that. In order to actually do that, I would have to rip out the whole floor or build a new subfloor on top of it. That wasn't something I was going to do, so we're actually going to be doing EVA foam on top of this. That means that the floor itself doesn't have to be perfectly smooth. The foam can move around with things, but it does have to be smooth. It just doesn't have to be perfectly flat. And so here's another place where the peel ply absolutely shines. This would have been really nice to have a roll to go out, but we had to work out a lot of the bubbles, and that so it means a lot of squeegee work and working things around to get that nice, clean, smooth surface. And of course, I cheaped out and got the folded stuff. I should have gotten the roll, but oh well. Nice thing is the next day we can come back and peel out the peel ply, and I get a nice, clean, smooth surface underneath. It doesn't really look like it because you can see all of the layers of everything else, and you can see through the one layer of epoxy. We were going to put on a second layer here, but found that the one layer for most of it actually worked really well, so we just stayed at that. We're not building anything structural, we're just kind of smoothing out the surface. I did use fairing compound before this coat, and I will be adding some fairing compound to a few places with bubbles and things like that on top of it. But this is all going to be painted, so I don't really care about that as much. I just needed to get a good smooth surface. There were a few spots that I came in and put in a second coat and really worked it in. Here you can see the two-part fairing compound, and I really like this stuff. You mix it up in a two-part yellow plus blue, it works green, and it works out really well. So we just use this to work into all those corners, give us a little bit of shape, let it cure, and it cures really nice and quickly so you can come in and sand it and get a nice smooth surface. And we're almost ready for the paint, but we're going to have to wait on that. Until next time. Okay, so this is the step in the project that I hate. Fiberglass, I've done it 100 times. I don't like it every time, especially on something this with a warped floor. The amount of time I would have to put in to make this absolutely pristine is off the charts. So I made it as good as we can get. And I'm also going to be putting down flooring on top of this, so you're not going to see most of it. I was more focusing on the round over curves. The nice thing is in the next video, we're going to have a lot of fun. We're getting the upholstery back, we're putting in flooring, we're going to be doing painting in the boat. The inside of this will actually start to look like a nice boat. Yeah, so that's where we're at. I do want to say a thank you to Total Boat. I reached out to them because I had a few questions about things we're using, and they said, hey, we got stuff for you. And they sent me the epoxy, the filler, several other things, and so they've actually provided quite a bit for this. And I want to say a huge thank you for that. I wasn't expecting that, but Total Boat was the stuff I was going to be going with to begin with. So thank you. So next time I will be using their paint to be painting it because they provide it for free. But not only that, it was actually the stuff I was planning on going with. This is stuff I've used in the past, and I like using it. So that's why you're seeing a lot of Total Boat products here. They are helping make this happen. So a huge thank you to Total Boat, as well as a huge thank you to all those people scrolling over there because they're the patrons on Patreon. Without patrons or members, people supporting this channel, we wouldn't exist, and I want to say a huge thank you to you specifically. Thank you for that. Yeah, we will be getting to more fun things, and there is some woodworking coming up, so stay tuned for that. We'll have a lot more fun next time. I think that'll do it for now, and until next time, have a wonderful day. After doing all of the fiberglass work, I got coated in this stuff, and you could look at me and say, he is resin.